Travis Wayne Goodsall. Think I'm ready. Took some time to work on the pictures this morning. But yet I do it again. The gift of translator. So, wow. I heard the most beautiful performance of Bach's composition. It just brought me to tears when I heard it. I was trying to find the right one. The first guy I tried, he was too slow and too timid. No, this is Bach. And then some others, and then there were some string versions, and then I found her. Just wow. The particular song is always played right before the Sunday sessions of General Conference. And with the temple pictures. And I've heard that it was because Benson loved that song. So he made sure to have it played before conference began. And that tradition has continued on. But they never told us since who it is, acknowledged the credits for it. And so I don't know the names of the classical compositions of the classical masters. I recognize them thanks to the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show and Amadeus for Mozart stuff, but I couldn't tell you the names of the compositions. And so, yeah, I finally found it with Handmaid's Tale last night as I was going to bed. They played that piece, and so I was able to go online to Tune Find, and they didn't have it listed. So I scrolled down, and somebody had asked the question, and somebody gave the answer. Found it. Gotcha. Just beautiful little Russian girl. So, First Nephi, chapter 17. Let's get into it. Already wasted 3 minutes. People are bored. Get to the point, Travis. I just demonstrated with the pictures that you're complaining about no narration. That I have the gift of translator. Every single Mormon knows what it means, and they're already upset. And they stormed away, putting a thumbs down and a hate comment and a death threat and a false testimonial that Nelson is the true living translator of Jesus. You guys will never learn. That's what's so sad. First Nephi, chapter 17, starting in verse 18. Nephi says, Thus my brethren did complain against me, and were desirous that they might not labor. For they did not believe that I could build a ship. So notice, they're his older brothers. They believe that they are the tribal successors, the princes of Lehi, and the birthright blessing son is the heir apparent. And thus, it's his job to decide whether he wants to labor for the people or not. I'm sure you remember King Benjamin, who gave his talk to the people and said that he himself, despite being their king, labors just like they do for their prosperity, for their daily living. But Laman and Lemuel believe that being king means they don't labor, that other people serve them as slaves to take care of their living for them. And so that's important, because that's what the Lamanites eventually do. They're lazy, and so they have to be hunters and gatherers. They're unable to make clothing, so they have loincloths. And so they just lose inspiration because of this superiority, as they claim as their right to rule over others. And so they don't believe in inspiration, that Nephi can build a ship. He's never built one before. They don't know his fruit. Nevertheless, notice ship. Nephi builds a ship and carries them across the ocean. And there are 4 sons, rather than 3 sons. You saw the pictures, right? Noah. This is what we're all talking about. Authority. Neither did they believe that he was instructed of the Lord. Inspiration. Getting the word and producing the results. Alma chapter 32, starting in verse 28. Nephi didn't just have a spiritual witness feeling, and then his spiritual witness feeling had a vision of being in the promised land. No. He had to take the word and actually physically make a boat and then sail it. The test of the word. And the word was good, and they got to the promised land. That is the true doctrine of the Book of Mormon and all scriptures of the Jews for faith. You don't stop with a spiritual witness feeling. You produce the results that are physical, tangible, smellable, seeable, feelable, hearable, lickable. The 5 physical senses of reality. It's a real simple doctrine. It's repeated numerous times throughout all of the scriptures, and yet you botched it by believing in the false prophets who told you Moroni chapter 10 was about spiritual witness feelings. Stop there, don't go any further, because you'll find out the church is false. God, how could you be so conned? And why would you get mad at me? Let's see. We knew that you could not construct a ship. They're getting glad because Nephi has to do all the work himself. Which is what I was thinking of this morning when I was doing it. Nobody else has deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. I did. But I have made it available on Amazon and Academia, and thousands of people around the world have obtained my Paleo-Hebrew decipherment. And yet, despite this, I'm concerned. Is because my intention was that others would learn and use it to understand scriptures better. And hoping that others would publish what they learn, so that I don't have to do what I did in the pictures this morning, so that I can see somebody else doing it. You know, it's so I had to do all the work this morning, yet again, and there's more to it. And so if a person sees the pictures this morning, and decide that they're gonna, steal it and claim it as theirs, as somebody did for my signs in the heavens for the latter days with the Paleo-Hebrew letters, the first and last letters, being the solar eclipse shadows on the United States of America, giving you the day and the hours. A guy had saw my picture on Academia and took it and redesigned it, but didn't give me credit for it. So I found it. I did the videos for you in which I said, you need to reference me. He did a brilliant job of redoing it, but his lack of understanding of the content, because apparently he didn't download my Paleo-Hebrew stuff, just the picture, and redid it. He therefore doesn't know the fuller context. He was just taking my picture, redoing it, and claiming it was him that came up with it. No. And so yes, there's more to it. Just as a little hint, this all has to do with the flood and Noah and authority. Trust me. The N for heaven, if you notice, in Egyptian, or Gardner's Egyptian sign list, it says that it's sky. No. Dumbass Gardner. Gets all knighted and everything. Heaven. And so nut, which is heaven, shoe, which is sky, the air for the sky. Egyptologists, they get PhDs, and yet nut is a woman who's arched over. That's the symbol of heaven for the one hieroglyph. And yet it's also, you can see in it the hieroglyphs for a pool with water in it, as well as the nomes or districts which have land and then irrigation. And Egyptologists are clueless and they don't understand it. And so, like I said, if we can go to Zion, I'm not saying when anymore. I did another extension for 3 months. I'm just but in Zion, because if we don't get to Zion, there's no way I'm going to be able to continue to survive for too much longer. I don't see it. I mean, yeah, granted, I've been saying this for years. But still, dear God. But in Zion, I have intentions of doing what I did for Paleo-Hebrew. Doing the whole sign list, and grammar, vocabulary, and correct it and add signs that have been left out. Because the one sign that you see has a plus. It's because it's a combination of two different things, because the sign list creator didn't put it in. And so I had to combine what he did have to tell you what it is. And it also is for our something for the sacred stand, but it doesn't have the human, because in Paleo Hebrew the J stroke is for a human, and so just the upper thing is for waters, and thus pool of waters, and thus land with irrigation, because heaven is considered by the Egyptians with the Amduat as another planet, another sphere of earth in the afterlife. It's not just floating out in space. That's how they portray it, and thus spirit world that we call it in Mormonism. And so it's all of those signs put together. And so if you see my Paleo Hebrew listing of signs, equivalents, that's the same concept. As, I'm not sure if I need to further update it, because as I find more Egyptian hieroglyphs, I find that I need to put them into the Paleo Hebrew sign identification list. And so, yeah, it all has to do with the same concept. Egyptian is easy once you understand it. It's a picture language, but nonetheless, notwithstanding. But you notice that both the Heliopolis creation glyph has Shu, the same as Nu of the Ogdode creation glyph. Not a coincidence. It's the same concept. So, anyway, where were we? Laman and Lemuel complaining about Nephi having the gift of translator and Nelson not. And so, let's see. Thou art like unto our father, led away by the foolish imaginations of his heart. Yea, he hath led us out of the land of Jerusalem. We have wandered in the wilderness for these many years, and our women have toiled, being big with child. And they have borne children in the wilderness, and suffered all things, save it were death. So yeah, I'm getting flashbacks of the Bach episode with the birth of the baby prior to. And it would have been better had they died before they came out of Jerusalem than to have suffered these afflictions. Wah, wah, wah. We have suffered these many years in the wilderness, which time we might have enjoyed our possessions. So there's possessions that they brought with them, because they have tents, they have to have food, so they have cooking stuff, they have weaponry, and so it's not like they're without possessions. What they're talking about is their gold and silver possessions with their home. And so they would have had camels and blah, blah, blah. So wah to them. They're talking about a land of inheritance. This is an Exodus story. That's what all this is about this year, for the final extension to Passover 2025, where Oaks is giving us the death threat if it does not happen. He will murder us. And so, yeah, Zion is our inheritance, not Utah. But Mormons have their lifestyle. They have it set up even though they're living paycheck to paycheck, they have their land of inheritance, as they suppose. And Nelson leads them to believe that this is Zion, that this isn't Babylon, that this isn't Greece, of the abomination of desolation, with the wrong temple rituals and the prostituting of the wives. But they believe that being happy is about wealth and prosperity, which, if on the promised land, that they weren't dismissing inspiration and having other people labor for them, thus Nephi, who gets all the ideas on how to build Zion, whereas Laman and Lemuel have no clue how to build Zion. And even with the church, they've got multi-trillions of dollars. Apple stock alone is reaching $4 trillion. And the church is a major stock investor in Apple to help them get it to $4 trillion. And so if the church were to sell their Apple stock, yeah, lots of money. And yet, the church could be 10 to 100 times more wealthier if they were just good and giving and charitable, wanting others to prosper as well. But this is what Laman and Lemuel also can't get. Because these prophets, they milk the previous prophets who hoarded the money. And then, since Hinckley, that's when they began to invest in the stock market to increase the wealth exponentially. And this greed of major big corporations is causing a division of rich and poor, and only because of the basic necessities that these big corporations provide is how they're able to continue to run, when if they took care of the poor, if they took care of their employees, if they provided good quality products, they would increase their wealth 10 or even 100-fold. And they don't get that. They think that their system is the best because they're at the 1% of the wealth of the world. And they don't get it. And that's where Zion, the economy in Zion, is just going to astound everybody. Just as those who worked for the distribution center and Beehive Clothing, when I redesigned the warehouse in Beehive Clothing, they didn't think it could be done, and they were shocked when it was done. And then they dismissed me after they got what they wanted from me. I did the labor. They couldn't figure it out. The leadership expected others to figure it out down at the bottom. They had no inspiration as to how to fix it, how to have it work so that they can have the church's directive to get Beehive Clothing warehouse moved to the distribution center warehouse. Nobody can figure it out. It's because they've got the Laman and Lemuel syndrome. And so I come in, new name Nephi, boom, once I was allowed to do it. had to be the second manager that replaced the first one, because the first one didn't want to do it. And the one guy that was working there, he had to be transferred, or he had to get a new job, getting more money at a different company. And so good for him and his family. But because he was the one who had the current system that we were using, I was told no. We're not going to change it, Travis. We've tried all different ways. You can't come up with anything different. What we're doing is the best. Oh, that was yours, right? Mm-hmm. And so 7 people. 40 hours a week, plus overtime on Saturdays, just so that we can get closer to being caught up for Monday. And so when I was finished, 2 people, 4 hours, done. No pick line, calling back. We're out of this item, we're out of this item, we're out of this item, and they have to sit and wait before they can finish the order to get it shipped off. Nope, done. 2 people, 4 hours. And in fact, even after I heard about it, after I left, they were saying that, it actually, numerous times where it's just one person who can work the conveyor belt. Just one. It's just that simple. And yet, everybody said it couldn't be done. Well, this is the best we can do. That's what my mom told me about the economy of America. That this is the best economy in the world, and this is the best that can be come up with. Mom, Book of Mormon, it tells us a better way. Nobody believes. Nobody believes. So this is the mindset that we're being told about people who think they're privileged, people who think that they are authorities over others, to enslave other people and think that that's the best economy, that that's a righteous economy. No, it is not. And so they then claim that the people of Jerusalem were righteous. Those in Salt Lake City are righteous. They're not wicked. It was self-defense. We're just keeping our covenant paths. Dear God. Yeah. They didn't believe that Jerusalem could be destroyed. And it was, because it's literal history event being turned into a prophecy of the latter days. You did catch on to this. That's why I'm likening the scriptures unto us. For they kept the statutes and judgments of the Lord and all his commandments according to the law of the Christ of the Jews. Moses. A man like Moses. And there Nephi is among them. And they don't recognize Nephi as their Christ, because they say the government belongs to them. But they do not acknowledge themselves as Christ. And they would go on to create the Great Spirit Jesus. Brilliant Book of Mormon, guys. It's too bad Mormons don't believe it. And so I have to do all the work. Rather than reading from other people. So, yeah, they then say, you're judging us, you can't judge us. Keep reading Matthew chapter 7. You're not done yet. There's more verses than one. Led us away because we would hearken unto his words, and our brother is like unto him. And after this manner of language did they murmur and complain. So yeah, with the Lehi's tree of life, Nephi has his vision, and then goes and sees his brethren, and they're murmuring and complaining. Lord hasn't made nothing known unto us. We don't understand. We're stupid. All right, next. 2 Nephi 5. That will be the theme song in the description below, in case you didn't realize. So I'm probably going to be bawling as it's being uploaded. Unless YouTube cyber attacks me and says, no, you cannot listen to music while uploading a video. You have to watch a commercial. Commercial! Second Nephi 5, 2 and 3. Laman and Lemuel's anger did increase against Nephi, insomuch that they did seek to take away his life. Mormons get furious. I see it. I've seen it all these years. That I demonstrate one of the gifts, whether it's seer, prophet, revelator, or translator, or the keys of Moses, and Mormons disconnect. And they put out the most vile of hate, death threats. You know, I'm forgetting his name. It's been so long. It's been almost a year since I got the death threats from the guy who said I was going to be assassinated on 8 April 2024. He'd heard that I had revealed the time of the prophecy on 8 April 2024 with translations of Paleo-Hebrew and Egyptian, as well as the visions that I've had as a man like Moses. And yet he pulled a Nephi to do exactly what Laman and Lemuel wanted to do to Nephi. Murder him. What the Jews wanted to do to Lehi. What King Noah wanted to do to Abinadi. Etc., etc., etc. Mormons' ignorance, refusing to use Jewish interpretation in the language of the Egyptians, using Christianity. They don't understand anything. They have created a whole new religion, a whole new interpretation, and they're just dense. Darkened mind, darkened soul, full of hate, full of arrogance, full of pride, wickedness, that they are incapable. Mormons are incapable of seeing how prostitution is paying a woman who gives it to her pimp for sex. And you can't see that the payment of tithing to the corporate board in order to get sealed in the temple to have sex is not the same thing. But it's Jesus' way. If you kept reading at the beginning of the the video with the whole flashback of the Latter-day history, which that's why I keep a record of the history of the people, that kind of thing that I do. The part where I go over the Islamic State and how Saudi Arabia and Qatar fund the Islamic State. I don't understand why people are calling them ISIS, because they're not ISIS. It's Islamic State. It's not ISIS. And even ISIL isn't correct either. But ISIS, Islamic State. Qatar and Saudi Arabia give to them under the guise of charitable donations for humanitarian efforts. I read that and I just busted up laughing, because that's what I've been telling you about all these years with the Church News videos about when the church claims they're giving charity. Because the church gave to Saudi Arabia, who gave it to ICE. To cause the terrorist attacks. Oh my God. Our government doesn't see it. Guys, they're funding terrorism against America. Hello? Dear God. What does it take to get my federal government to do their job? But yeah, that segment that I think was like 40 minutes, wasn't it? That's what I do with fashion. I have videos, I have pictures, I have videos that I make pictures out of, doing snapshots of the scenes, and then I'll do editings of the videos, and it's the same process. And so that's why I was able to do videos for you for the latter days, is because when I finally got a computer, I knew what I wanted to have done, and so I looked for these strange things called apps, since nobody seemed to have a program that would be separate from the internet, so that third parties don't cyber terrorize me. But yeah, that's what I've had is for that whole purpose, and that was able then to be used for doing these videos for you, so that I can get conference, do a clip from it, and do snapshot pictures for the thumbnail pictures, and comedy ensues, and the church wants me dead to cover up their sins and their crimes. So, yeah. It's my life, don't you forget. I don't want to listen to that today while I'm making this video, which, since I did the pictures already, should not take too much time, depending on how much more time I'm talking here. It's my life. Okay. Because yeah, I do. I can't just sit and do nothing and wait. It annoys me. Even if I'm just watching a TV show or a movie, I'm learning from it. I can't just sit and do nothing and veg. Unless I'm completely exhausted, then yes. But otherwise, no, I have to be doing something. I have to be learning. I have to be analyzing, researching, studying. And it's fun. It's entertaining for me. And Linda didn't like it. She gave me a book on the condition that I would just read it and not analyze it. Sorry, I can't make that promise. Can't do it. Don't try to change me. Love me as I love me, and there will be joy. Boo! Hilarious. You do know Princess Bride, so I don't have to explain it to you. Alright, so we got this one done. Yep, and so, yeah, another Exodus. He has to flee. Same pattern. When you're studying your scriptures of the Jews, you're supposed to know about the Christ from Deuteronomy 18:15, the man like Moses. Man like Moses has stories about him too, in which an Exodus is involved. You know, the book of Exodus. And so that pattern needs to be seen in all of the Jewish writings. And so, same in the Book of Mormon. Exodus pattern, as well as talking about Moses, talking about the Exodus, talking about the house of Israel being wicked, not wanting to listen, not wanting to obey, not wanting to leave, wanting to die, wanting to murder anybody who wants to save their lives. Sound familiar, Mormons? You're told, even in our manuals, about the house of Israel being wicked. They didn't want to obey. Liken the scriptures unto yourselves, and Mormons still don't do it. They don't make the connection. Dear God. And so tents for tabernacles came and went. Further extensions pissing me off. Alright. So, we're right here in line for the next one. So verse 18 in 2 Nephi 5. Notice this is two verses or two chapters after telling us about the man like Moses for the future. 2 Nephi chapter 3 verse 5, the Jewish Christ. Yeah, Joseph Smith Jr. is supposed to prepare Mormons for the coming of the Mormon who would be their Christ. And now, boom, Nephi becomes the Christ of the Nephites. Verse 18, and it came to pass that they would that I should be their king. Christ, anointed, same thing. You can even put in God. But you need to understand what God meant from the Egyptians. We're not talking about Jesus of Homoousion from outer space, even though the Egyptians did have them portrayed being in outer space. On boats. Christ. But I, Nephi, was desirous that they should have no Christ. He's the Christ. And he's telling Mormons, you are joint heirs with Christ. You don't need a Christ to bow to and worship. And never see, but just trust in the Lord and pay tithing to atone for his atonement for you. My God, how could you be so fooled? Nevertheless, he still does everything that a king would have done. A righteous king, not a Laman and Lemuel king. And he should be their ruler and their teacher. Who has to do everything for them. Let's see. Oh, that's for Laman and Lemuel. The prophecy. He's saying that the prophecy is fulfilled. Yeah, a man like Moses usurps the authority from Pharaoh, who usurped it from the previous righteous king. So thus the Egyptian origin story of Osiris getting murdered by his brother Set, who usurps the kingdom, and then Horus, the son of Osiris, goes back to challenge Set for the throne, for authority, and thus Moses got it from that. All the same thing here. They should be cut off from his presence. Cut off from the presence of the Lord. Behold, they were cut off from his presence. Notice how cut off is used in this context. This is very telling, because Joseph Smith's second vision in verse 40 uses cut off. After telling us it's precisely as it stands in our New Testament Acts, chapter 3, verse 22 and 23. Did you ever go to it? Does it say cut off? No. And so the plagiarized version in the Book of Mormon, 3rd Nephi, chapter 20, 23, very hilarious, not intended by the original authors. That was it Parley P. Pratt who did the first chapter and verses segregation? But nonetheless, it uses cut off also, rather than precisely as it stands in our New Testament. And there are other places where cut off is used, and there are places where precisely as it stands in our New Testament is used. You need to know this when you're going through your scriptures and you find the pattern, but recognize the anomaly. It's using this version for the second vision, even though they say they're getting it from Acts precisely as it stands in our New Testament. And so the cutting off is from the presence of their Christ. Laman and Lemuel lost their authority. They tried to usurp it from Lehi. Lehi is dead. And now they're trying to take over the kingdom, but Nephi, son of Lehi, is the rightful heir, even though Laman is. But you see the pattern. It's telling it in a different way, but the pattern is there. And so, because of their wickedness, they don't go to this promised land. They are in a promised land, but we're telling a different story here now. They put all of the different segments together as a narrative so that Christianity would cause confusion and darkness of mind and soul to think that it's literal history. But all of these can be separated out and told as different stories, just like in the Bible. They are not narratives. They are separate, individual, Egyptian, hieroglyphic petroglyphs, combo petroglyphs, as I call them, that many of which have texts that we've found connected to them. But that's all it is. They're all separate stuff. That's why, was it yesterday, talking about how there are different interpretations or different stories about different Greek characters or Roman characters, and so you need to understand each of them separately, not trying to harmonize them all to try to figure out who this literal history person was. No, they're all separate prophecies about the latter-day Christ, the false prophet, and the great and abominable church, who needs to be rescued and go to Zion. Same pattern. Stick to the pattern. Don't put in Christian interpretation to screw it all up. It will cause you to be confused and you won't figure it out. And so that's why it's interesting that Lehi leaves. He takes the wealth of Laman and Lemuel with him, and they're pissed. When they go to Zion, Laman and Lemuel stay behind. But they do try to hunt them down and find them, and they have wars and rumors of wars and bloodbaths and blah, blah, blah. But in this particular case, for the latter days, this pattern of Laman and Lemuel getting destroyed is what Mormons need to pay attention to. They only have the Lamanites continue on through a narrative for those Christians who are easily deceived. But each one is a separate thing. And so technically, if we were to pull this out as a separate story, Nephi leaves, and Laman, they end up dead, because nobody is able to survive without inspiration from the true source of knowledge, the sun god at noonday, Emmanuel. Did you see that? Do I have to make it hours long for each picture before you can fully grasp what's going on in them? If I did 15 or 20 seconds, that wouldn't be enough. And so, skin of blackness is in the context of the Egyptian concepts. That it's symbolic for the corruption. It is not intended to actually apply to the human skin color. But when you use Christian interpretation says Ham and Canaan were black because they're wicked. No. You've completely missed the point. Ham, incorrectly pronounced, means black in Egyptian. Kemet is the land of Egypt, the black land. It's because the soil at the Nile was black. The outward surface skin of the land is black. That doesn't make it right, wicked. It just is. And so the snows in the mountains in the south, when they melt, causes an inundation of the Nile River. And the soil from the mountains are red. And so the waters look like they're full of blood, because they're red. Just like the Exodus story of the water turning blood red. Inundation of the Nile. And so it helps provide nutrients into the black soil land, so that when the waters separate the waters from above from waters below. Exodus, Genesis, creation of heaven and earth, inundation of the Nile, Moses parting the waters, passing through on dry ground. It's all the same stuff, same pattern. Then vegetation, and then animal life, and bugs. And so Ham is interesting because it doesn't make any sense why he would put Mitzrayim in there. But I did the video the other week. I think it was 1 week or 2 weeks ago, where I showed you the picture of the two different comparisons, Mitzrayim and Nazareth. Same root. It's got the throne. And so that's what it's all talking about here, is that they are the Egyptians left behind. Nephi is Moses taking the righteous to Zion. That's all it is. You need to understand the bigger context of picture languages to understand what this is talking about. Because if you turn it into literal Christian history, yeah, you're going to start accusing Joseph Smith of writing the Book of Mormon, let alone being a racist. No! And so, yeah, and then you get Bigot Butters. Anybody remember him? This baby is black. It's a dark and loathsome thing. No! He did not just say that. I don't think any of you remember the videos where I talk about meeting him. My one-on-one with Bigot Butters. Even though it's racist Butters, but Bigot Butters clicks better. He's Mormon. He's got it all. Bigot, sexist, racist. He's got the full package as a Mormon. See, in South Jordan, there was a genealogical center, and when I was doing my genealogy work, I had first started at the ward that had the room, but I could only get it under the eye of Lester, the child molester, and so still upset with him for cursing me and helping Stephanie leave. Dear God, family proclamation. It's not about separation of family, and yet Mormons use it to separate their family. You're wicked, therefore we're getting a divorce. You're wicked, therefore I'm gonna murder you. Steal your kids, and steal your Paleo-Hebrew research. Deciphered Paleo-Hebrew, and she stole it, claiming, well, the kids need it. She, of course, would delete the files. There were floppy disks back then. So I had to redo it all after recovering, because first I had to get away from the evil. Went downtown, and then she was a nightmare landlord. Wasn't allowed to go to the bathroom at night. Wasn't allowed to use deodorant. Oh my hell. So, as soon as I found another place, Gabriel had his apartment that he was renting out a room. And so I was doing that for a little while until the ex was able to get a divorce without my consent up in Canada, claiming that, well, we've been separated for a year, and so I get it in the mail and see that it was for her birthday. And then come January, my first paycheck with the church, more than 50%'s been taken out. I can't live anymore. Next time you need a better lawyer. Nobody cared. I'm the American, and nobody cared in America to protect the American from the big, bad, mean Canadian. Just so wrong. Anyway, I digress. So let's get back to the scriptures. Let's get this over with. We just passed an hour. Let's see. Cut off from the presence, and he had caused the cursing come upon them because of their iniquity. Not listening, not getting inspiration, being lazy, wanting others to be their slaves. You see what's going on here? Lamanites turn black, and they make other people their slaves, who, in literal history terms, were blacks, and Chinese and American Indian, but blacks from the British who were white. You see how this is playing out? People just jump to conclusions when you have the wrong interpretation, and you refuse to stop and go, wait a minute, maybe I should figure this out first and figure out what they're saying rather than just being triggered for a response. Let's see. Cursed shall be the seed of him that makes with their seed. And so this is the prostitution of the Greeks, the abomination of desolation, that has to be put in somewhere in every single story of the Jews. Is that Set destroys the temple practices and begins the prostituting of women. The abomination of desolation of the Greeks. And so here it is here. You have the great and abominable church getting set up as Laman, the kingdom of the Lamanites. And they want to enslave everybody. And so if righteous are to follow the prostitution of the Lamanites, see, not polygamy, just prostitution. Then the children are no longer of the righteous people, because an unbeliever, if they don't convert, the children are gonna, no longer righteous. They're under the kingdom of evil. And so it has nothing to do with not marrying Mormons who are black because they're denied the priesthood. But that's what Brigham did. It's that as Mormons, if we have a particular religion with particular scriptures, we're not supposed to practice another religion. And yet that's exactly what Brigham Young did to you. They took Joseph Smith's scriptures, turned them Christian, and so it's a completely different religion. It's the abominable church. And yet, The prophecies say that from this abominable church would come Samuel the Lamanite, the name Shem, Emmanuel. That's why they did it. They're trying to teach you. There's something else in here, isn't there? Or is it just 18? Yeah, it's just 18. Jacob is the next one. So I wasn't intending to read the rest of these verses. It just happened that way. Should have trusted that I wrote it down and stuck to the script. Jacob 1. Okay, 9 and 11. A whole bunch of Nephis and kings here. Now Nephi began to be old at 36. If you're going to call it literal history. And he saw that he must soon die. Wherefore he anointed a man to be a king. Do you see what the Book of Mormon just did here? Joseph Smith Sr. defines who a king is. Anointed. In Greek, it's christen, for Christ, anoint. In Hebrew, it is Messiah. And you have to put the past tense prefix determinative for the root word Messiah to make it anointed. Thus would be the N for king. So, Messiah? Messiah. And I've seen YouTube, different rabbis spell it differently. They use different vowels. Interesting. There is no consistency for the spelling of a Messiah. Even the picture that I show you for Joseph Smith being Messiah ben David, that's a completely different spelling than other rabbis on YouTube. Fascinating. Anyway, just understand, remove the vowels, you get to the root from the original Hebrew. So I don't care about vowel pronunciation. And so this is Christ. Nephi is the Christ. Right here, Jacob 1:9 tells you Nephi is the Christ of the story. He is anointed as king, as Christ. So you remember Joseph Smith's washings and anointings to become hereafter kings and queens, priests and high priestesses. It's actually high priest and high priestess because it's after the order of Melchizedek. Amen. Emmanuel, the hidden name that we don't want to use the too frequent repetition of, so we're going to use Jesus instead. Melchizedek, section 107, verses 2 through 4. That's what they're all talking about. Don't put Jesus in there. You're going to get screwed up. And so, yes, lots of kings, lots of Christs, lots of lords, lots of gods. They're all the same concept. It's a title. This is the Jews. Came from the Egyptians. It is not Christian Jesus who did away with kings. And so, according to the reigns of the kings, wielded the sword of Laban, and so the weapon to be used against Nephi is the weapon that was used against Laban, Purim. That's why Sword of Laban is in here. Wherefore the people were desirous to retain in remembrance his name, and whoso should reign in his stead were called by the people 2nd Nephi, 3rd Nephi, and so forth, according to the reigns of the kings. And thus they were called by the people, let them be whatever name they would. And so yet they go and then talk about Mosiah, and then Benjamin, and then Mosiah, and then the kingdom is done. Mosiah, Mose, Yah. Yah, Mose, the first king of the 18th dynasty, David Moses's. Moses, Yah. The man like Moses, the Christ of the Jews, the future person, Emmanuel. Not a coincidence. Book of Mormon's more brilliant than anybody realizes. Trust Joseph Sr. Junior had nothing to do with the composition. And so yes, we would learn that Laman did the same stunt. Everybody is called Laman, King Laman, throughout the whole thing. Same concept. Alrighty. And so, how many books of Nephi are there? 4. No peeking. So, 4 books of kings. How many books of kings are there in the Old Testament, called so by Christians? 4. But the first 2 are called Samuel, name of God. Samuel the Lamanite, king. Ta-da! Yeah, the original Hebrew has them as kings. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th kings. Christ's messiahs. Even though Melech is king in Hebrew also. But anoint is to make somebody a king. Thus Christ, somebody who's anointed as king. It's all the same thing. So thus, Melchizedek is both the king and the Zadok high priest, not the Cohen Aaronic priesthood. Of the great and abominable church of Aaron, the golden cow, that he took everybody's wealth to form the idol god, and then they were then able to have sex, and it was an orgy sex. Same pattern. Same pattern. That's what you're doing, Mormons. Prostitution. Paying for sex. All the same. Okay, so thus the reigns of the kings is now being designated as a time period for the Nephites. And so yes, if we get to Zion, we will have an alteration of the calendar that will include different holy days for us, because we'll need to incorporate a remembrance of the latter days and why we're in Zion because of it, as well as some Joseph Smith stuff and the abomination of Brigham Babylon. Can't believe they put that in there. And thinking that it was going to prove the church is true. never learn. They never learn. Mormons never learn. All right, King Noah. Mosiah chapter 7. Moses Yah 7. And verse 9. And he said unto them, Behold, I am the Lamb, Limhi, the son of Noah, who was the son of Zenoth. So you see what's going on here? You have Zenoth is the original. He dies. Noah is the bad person who usurps the throne, even though it's just a lineal descent. Different pattern, or different story, but the same pattern. An original king, a usurping king, or a wicked king, and then the righteous king after him, Limhi. Limhi is the Christ for certain stories. Notice he's a king because of an exodus of the destruction of their land, because of the wickedness of King Noah. Patterns throughout the whole Book of Mormon, just like the Bible, because it's Jewish. All comes from the Egyptians. And so Zenoth is Osiris, Noah is Set, Limhi is Horus. Lehi is Osiris, Laman is Set, Nephi is Horus. Patterns. Stick to the pattern. Don't run it as a narrative, because you're going to get confused, because Zenoth also was a bad guy who left Mosiah to form his own kingdom. So that story is different. So pay attention. Even though he wasn't really bad in the sense, he just wanted to live elsewhere. And so King Laman got him. So he's in King Laman's territory, and he's now in bondage to Laman. So that's what needs to be understood with Zenoth when we get to him. So anyway, came up out of the land of Zarahemla to inherit the land, which was the land of their fathers, who was made a king by the voice of the people. Ta-da. Patterns. Patterns, patterns, patterns. And so then 11, it's like the whole chapter describes it. And so now it came to pass that Zenoth conferred the kingdom upon Noah. See, Joseph didn't confer the kingdom on Brigham. This is lineal descent. This isn't Brigham murdering Joseph and then claiming that he's the rightful successor as only the president of the 12, rather than a vote of the whole Melchizedek priesthood for 3 replacements rather than just 1. And then having 2 counselors on top of that, or however many is needed. Nevertheless, therefore Noah began to reign in his stead, and he did not walk in the ways of his father. So Zenoth is somewhat righteous, as they're talking about here. See the patterns? Behold, he did not keep the commandments of God. He did walk after the desires of his own heart. Just like the economy thing at the beginning. A heart of greed, even though, yeah, you may be rich compared to your slaves, but you could be richer. And this is where King Noah goes wrong. He doesn't understand. If you are good, everybody can prosper, and you won't have a need to hoard money. You've got a system of economy that is self-sustaining, self-sufficient, And everybody gets what they need and what they want. There is no poor among them, thus no rich, because everybody's rich equally, according to their needs and wants. And so thus greed is eliminated in such a culture. There's no reason to steal, because you get whatever you need and want. And so if you're going to steal from somebody in Zion, it means that you are taking somebody else's property to cause them harm. Not because you want it, because you don't have it, because you have what you need and want. And so you are maliciously going after another person to take what's theirs, so that they don't have it, even though in Zion it can easily be replaced. But because you pulled that kind of a stunt, you gotta leave. You have no interest in being a Zion person in heart and soul. You are a layman. Yes, you gotta go. Let's see. He had many wives and concubines. Brigham Young. Concubine is a servant of the wife. So Abraham's story about the Greeks' prostitution, not literal history. They did not exist. That's why they all have it. That's why Pharaoh keeps knocking up Abraham's wife. Actually, it was Isaac, was the 2 times. One from the one king and then Pharaoh. And Christianized scholars can't figure it out. This must be a repeat, including the same story included for both. No. Are you not scientists? Do you not know the scientific process? What are you doing? Screwing it up. And he causes people to commit sin. He ordered the people to commit sin. Section 119. We order you to commit prostitution, sex trafficking, pyramid schemes, extortion, laundering of money, all for the Judas price of insurrection and terrorism. Every single thing in Section 119 is criminal. Nothing is righteous from God, even if you claim it's Jesus. It's like nobody cares. We've got Mormons who are lawyers, Mormons who are judges, right, Oaks? And none of them understand that Section 119 is all criminal. And instead, they pay tithing to the church to be criminal themselves, as well as victims of the church's crimes, and do that which was abominable in the sight of the Lord. Not a coincidence that they used abominable in here. This is the great and abominable church. Patterns. Yea, they did commit whoredoms and all manner of wickedness, prostitution, and crime. And he laid a tax, tithing, but only 1/5, not 10%. Of all they possessed. And so, yes, 1/5 could be more than 10%. Maybe. Not like, well, no. No. It's not the same. A 5th part of their gold, 5th part of their silver, 5th part of their ziph, and of their copper, and of brass and iron, and a 5th part of the fatlings, and a fifth part of their grain. Tithing. The Book of Mormon again condemns Section 119 before Brigham Young created it. Do you see what's being done here? See how they're telling you this? What the hell makes you think Section 119 is from Jesus? All right, Jesus is not real, and therefore Lucifer, blah, blah, blah. And all this he did to support himself. Layman. Enslaving the people, forcing them to support his lifestyle. And his wives, and his concubines. And also his priests, because he has 12 priests, not high priests. They don't have a Melchizedek authority, only Aaronic, to baptize. Thus, Alma only can baptize and only teach the words of Abinadi, because he's not of the Melchizedek priesthood. Patterns. And their wives and their concubines, which means Alma had wives and concubines. He had to give them up. Thus, he had changed the affairs of the kingdom. Not the same church. For he put down all the priests that had been consecrated by his father, consecrated new ones in their stead. Brigham Young excommunicated those who were loyal to Joseph, consecrated his own who were loyal to him, such as were lifted up in the pride of their hearts. Yea, and thus they were supported in their laziness. Notice they didn't put idleness, because idle could be lazy or idol worshiper, which also is lazy, but and in their idolatry. See how they're distinguishing between the meanings of idol. And in their whoredoms of prostitution, by the taxes. Why can't Mormons see this? Which King Noah put upon his people. Thus did the people labor exceedingly to support iniquity. Yeah. That's the title of the video yesterday. And they also became idolatrous, because they were deceived by the vain and flattering words of Nelson and his corporate board. For they did speak flattering things unto them. In a coming day, you won't see him if you're wicked. Oh, Jesus, I love you. I don't see Jesus because you're wicked. He's here. Second coming. Yay. And it came to pass that King Noah built many elegant and spacious buildings. A great and spacious building. And it's not the city of Zion that will be a great and spacious building. It's not the building that is evil. Patterns, pride was the symbol of the great and spacious building of the Tree of Life vision. This is what he's talking about. Elegant, spacious buildings. There's no need for this. This is a misuse of resources. It's one thing to build a building that can last for as long as possible. It's another thing to make a building that is so huge that you don't use it. You only use certain rooms in your mansion, your palace. There's no need for the extra rooms. All you need is what you need to live in. You need a place to sleep, you need a place to eat, you need a place to work, you need a place to exercise, you need a place to whatever else is needed. Beyond that, I see too many rich in their mansions over my time that have so much space in their mansions that never get used. And they have to hire slaves to keep it clean. The illegal immigrants that are about to be booted out of America. With the exodus of Trump. But same pattern. Thus prophecies getting fulfilled, guys. This is why you need to pay attention to all this, even though it's an hour and a half into the video. And potentially could go on for 2 hours. There's a reason. We got 3 months. It's okay to do long videos again. I'm pissed. I'm rebelling. And so, yes, in Zion, it's designed by me so that each person or group, family group, which, yeah, if you're single women, single guys, and you want to share together, great. You can set it up for what you want it to be designed as. And technically, if you understood the circumstances of the human race getting exterminated, you're not going to want to be sharing apartments with others of your kind, of sex. Kind. Genesis, seed after its kind. That's what I was thinking of. Subhuman! And it's 9 o'clock. Oh my hell. And so, yeah, you come to Zion, you go through the check-in, get checked out with medical, and then we sit down and there will be a realtor who will help with the kind of building that you want, and an architect would be there as well to do the blueprints for your particular home segment that will be placed into the city. I've got it all designed. It's perfect. And so, yes, you'll sit and discuss what you need and what you want for the blueprints of your home. You get to have it the way you want it. And so, yes, if you want a white picket fence, you can have a white picket fence. If you want a garden, you can have a garden. Terrarium, solarium, yeah, you get them. And anything you need and want. Now, if you're not going to need them, and you're not going to use them, you don't get them. It's like you don't get yourself a dog and then neglect the dog. The dog's going to be taken away so that it can be saved from you because you neglected it. Again, you can't want a mansion if you're not going to use all the rooms. And so I've had struggle with this because of my economic situation, is that I tend to have a whole trunk of computer wiring and parts and stuff. Technically, I don't need them. That's why they're in the trunk. And so I do need to go through and get rid of what I don't need. But because of our economic situation, things may improve for me. And so thus, in the future, I might have use for them. But until then, they take up space. So no more of that. In Zion, you get everything you need and everything you want. There's no financial considerations involved. And so for food, you don't need to have a year's supply of food stored up in your place. You only need the space for a week, 2 weeks, because fresh foods have an expiration on them. You've got to eat them within a certain time frame. And so thus you don't want a year's supply of apples, because the apples won't last a year. You've got to do other things like preserves or canning, other types of stuff, in order to make the apples last longer, because natural apples have an expiration date and you don't want them after that. And so thus you would be wasting with excess. And so Zion is set up so that if you have excess, you give the excess to the storehouse. And so you don't want excess rooms, because then we'll have to sit down and say, okay, well, you don't need these extra rooms, then we'll redesign your home to have these rooms instead. And so I do understand that when you have an insecurity, like a food insecurity, that when all of a sudden you are given access to food, you overindulge because of the insecurity that you've had. It takes time to adjust to the lack of insecurity that is now in your life. And so, like candy, for example, I don't have candy on a regular basis. And so when I do get candy, it's gone instantly because of the insecurity of not having candy. But when I have candy on a regular basis, my quantity is limited. I don't have as much anymore. And I'm able to normalize my usage of it. And so for you guys, you get diabetes and other problems with candy from sugar. Not me. Not me. And this is the same for salts. Same thing. Got to get into the habit so there's no insecurity in my thinking processes. And so yeah, Thanksgiving, dear God, once a year. And so yes, obviously everybody overindulges and gets bloated to the point of pain and problems health-wise because of that insecurity of not having Thanksgiving for every meal. Thus it's not special otherwise. So that's the thing for that. And then he built a spacious palace and a throne in the midst thereof, all of which was of fine wood and ornamented with gold and silver and precious things. And he caused the workmen should work all manner of fine work within the walls of the temple, of fine wood and of copper and of brass. Nephi, when he built the temple originally, did not put fine stuff in it. With Zion, there is no need for finery because there is no such thing as finery anymore. There is no monetary system of economy. When there's a monetary system of economy, then you have things that are valuable versus things that aren't valuable. And the poor can only afford what's not valuable, and the rich hoard the valuable stuff. But in Zion, no monetary system of economy. You get what you need, you get what you want. There is no value, price value to stuff. Only intrinsic value for the owner or the receiver of gifts. And so thus, you don't need 1 billion rings. You know, if you insist that you have to have a ring on every finger, fine. Just make sure you use them. Because if you only get the rings to have rings and then you put them in a little box and you never use them, why do you have them? Now, if it was grandma's ring, that's another thing. But then maybe you should start thinking about putting it into the museum if you're not going to use it yourself. Or pass it as an heirloom from generation to generation. So yeah, it's going to be a whole new style of living that nobody is aware of. And the human factor is removed from Zion's equation. That's what's ruining our economy and the world's economies, is because human natures of greed, selfishness, pride, arrogance, jealousy, etc. interfere and cause problems. Whereas in Zion, all of that is eliminated. And so it's a whole new paradigm of economy, a whole new way to live. And so, know what you want, know what you need to help supply the storehouse, and that's all you need. And if you want to decorate, fine, nothing wrong with decoration, but you don't need to make it of gold and silver and precious things. If you have a specific want, then yes, we'll provide it for you. But if you don't need it, you don't need it. There's no need to be insecure or feel that you're being left out. You don't need it. See, my sister Tiffany could never understand this as a kid growing up. She was milking the system. She sees her big brother requiring things for baseball and for school, and she says, I want that too. I don't want to be left out. And so she demanded that her parents extort for her living. She didn't need it. She wasn't old enough yet. And yet, parents had to cave. Todd and Terrell Lynn were not smart enough to figure that out. They lived within what parents' means gave them. Anyway. All the seats were set apart for the high priests, were above all the other seats. So this is ranking authority, to let people know that you're in charge, whereas in Zion, all of us are joint heirs. We are all equal in authority. And the system is a constitutional republic rather than kings giving you orders for your life, in which life, liberty, property, all of you equally. You get life, you get liberty, you get property, needs and wants. It's in our Constitution, and yet we're still not following it. And now it's gone and destroyed. Fascism has stolen it from us. And America has fallen and physically is about to fall if Trump gets into power on the 20th. And 3rd Nephi 7 is mistaken. Because Oaks failed. Nelson and Oaks failed. They were going to keep Trump out of office. They need to, because Trump is going to betray the church. He's going to bite the hand that fed him. He doesn't care. He wants the Trump Tower. Just like the temples for his prostitution. Not a coincidence. And so, yeah, it's a situation of you have everything you need and you want. Why are you attacking other people? Why are you telling other people what they need and want when they don't need and want it? Why are you trying to control the lives of other people? You've got your own life. Live it. Let them live theirs. They are righteous. They are in Zion. If a woman wears a certain kind of clothing, don't slut shame her. Leave her alone. She's doing try-on videos for me. Back off. So yes, hate is eliminated in Zion. Envy, jealousy, judgmentalness is gone in Zion. And as long as you can give others their life, liberty, and property, you get yours. And so your kids, you get to raise them, but give them life, liberty, and property. Teach them. Teach them to be Zion-hearted. Don't throw in stuff that will cause them to rebel against Zion. You need to teach them. Don't sit them in front of the TV and have them watch Star Wars and then not teach them, expecting that they'll choose to be a Jedi Master rather than a Sith Lord. You can't count on that if you're not going to be there to teach them, to tell them. See how the Sith Lord is mean? He's taking away the agency of the Jedi. Teach. Talk with them. They're just kids. They don't know anything yet. So I turned out okay, being set in front of the TV. And then when I was a teen or older, was I a teen? We were in Placentia when they came home from the Combined Relief Society priesthood meeting to force the agency of kids for the scheduled time per day to watch TV. 1 hour. 1 hour a day they wanted me to watch. They tried 30 minutes. I said, oh, hell no, they're hour-long shows. And so, yeah, there was an uprising and a rebellion. Hell no! And so, yeah, I was watching 8 to 10 hours of TV a day as a kid. And look at me now, hated by Mormons who want to murder me. But yeah, I've seen that. Mormons who say, we need to remove the TVs from our homes. It is the idol god statue altar. We're worshiping our TVs. Well, you are by fearing the TV. You've turned the TV into an idol god to fear. and to ban from your lives. Dumbass. Bad as Mormon housewives with porn. All those women are evil. We need to punish them. You understand you're a woman? But I'm covered up and hidden. Yeah, you're being sexually abused. No, it's Jesus. No. Okay, so then the tower, which would be used in later story. But yeah, section 101, the parable of Joseph Smith, which has been removed from the Doctrine and Covenants manual this year. For the latter days, gone. Which we all knew when I was revising the footnotes for the church, that it was the church office building. That's the tower. It overlooks the whole valley. It was specifically designed to be the tower of prophecy. They didn't realize that they're the great and abominable church. Hilarious. And thus 19 July 1840. Academia. Only 9 people have watched it. Still just the one bookmark. And that's sad. You know, the Mormons don't want scriptures. Do not pay attention to your Book of Mormon. What happened to the Laymen and Lemuelites who didn't have scriptures? They became dumb and began worshiping Jesus, the Great Spirit. Okay. And then he caused other buildings to be built, great tower to be built in the hill north. So none of this part isn't bad. You do need to have a tower to be a watchtower. You do need buildings for the people and all that stuff. And none of this part is bad. Got to know the difference. But the part in which they are used, verse 14, came to pass that he placed his heart upon his riches, and he spent his time in riotous living with his wives and concubines. And so did also his priests spend their time with harlots. Were they not allowed to have wives and concubines? They had to have the prostitutes? Huh. Okay. Whatever. Temple prostitutes. At the brothel temple. The temple brothel. And so, yeah, he then planted vineyards, had wine presses, but it was for alcohol rather than for grape juice or cran raspberry juice, so that he can be drunk. Noah got drunk. Ham saw him naked. Noah cursed Ham's son Canaan. Abraham 1 explains that. Hilarious. So I think since we're nearing 2 hours, when we finish with King Noah, we'll stop the video, even though we could go for 4 hours. But you notice how I'm not being cyber terrorized with the freezing of the camera? God. And so yeah, it's most likely he's just on his vacation time after the new year. But still, dear God. And if it's the Mormons at the Strengthening Church Members Committee, they too are on vacation because of the new year. Dear God. Unbelievable. The abuse I get. And then he sets guards round about. And so this is where Mosiah 29 comes in, which we'll stop the camera and start at 29 when we get to this end here. Guards were about to keep them off, but he did not send a sufficient number. Oh, that's for the Lamanites. Yeah. And so, yeah, he's a poor commander-in-chief. He doesn't know military strategy. He's only interested in pleasures and living a great life, not caring about his health, not caring about his welfare. It's getting to him and will lead to consequences, thus the destruction of the people. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so stop the camera, do a bathroom break, come back, continue on for the 4-hour tour. So this is the weakness of The Handmaid's Tale, in which they have Gilead, is that what they called it? Becomes wicked with the prostitution of the raping of the handmaids, because the wives are unable to bear their own children until the new generation of kids get raised up for the drivers to become commanders. Oh man, little girls, oh my god. But the scriptwriter, the book author, I guess is the person that it came from, doesn't seem to understand how civilizations function, as that's her weakness in the storyline. And, for some people, that's sufficient. But there are those of us who are geeks, for like Star Trek and Star Wars. You have those who take it seriously, and you have to have every detail explained, and the economy, the government, the religion, and all have to be in sync, and consequences all laid out, etc., etc. And so thus Galaxy Quest gets created as a movie. But nonetheless, this is a situation where obviously the Gilead, I'm going to call it Gilead whether it is or not, is obviously a corrupt society, as there's many problems in there. And I do appreciate the attempt to try to show the quality of life, or the different facets of the life. As yesterday I saw them go to a place where handmaids never go. And so we get to see other sides of the total civilization that was created for this abominable purpose. But those who get to Canada, they're portraying Canada as if there is no crime committed in Canada, that everything is perfect and paradise in Canada, but yet it still has it as our society currently before Trump takes over. It's just without the crime and corruption. And so people still have to get a job, people still have to see the medical doctor, people still have to take care of legal things, and people have vehicles, and they have to have money, they have to pay for rent, they have to pay for food. And that kind of a system is what led to the Gilead system, because it's corrupt, because of the monetary system of economy that naturally causes a division between the wealthy and the poor. And thus all of the jealousy, greed, selfishness that results in taking away life, liberty, and property of others. So it becomes a survival of the fittest situation. And so the scriptwriter, the author, does not understand this concept of civilizations. She thinks that the way things are the way things are best and it can't be improved upon. And so you've got these Christians who are fringe Christians, because I saw yesterday that she's now trying to show that there's a true Christianity versus the Gilead Christianity. No. Doesn't work either way. But nonetheless, and notwithstanding, that is the problem with that. And so, yeah, it's going to be difficult for Mormons to realize that there will be Mormons who will think that they may not be worthy for the prosperity of Zion. It'll just be too overwhelming for them. So hopefully it won't take you too long to get adjusted into your new home once we get it built. Once we get it built. But it's going to take time. It's going to take time. So, needle pulling thread. I mean, China can build a skyscraper in a couple of weeks. Just incredible. So it can be done quick, but I mean, we have to have people who can do it professionally and right in order for that to happen, along with the manpower. But otherwise, if I have to do all the work, it's going to take time. Okay, so Mosiah 29. Moses Yah is giving up the throne. He says, "Therefore I will be your king the remainder of your days." But his sons are wanting to go preach to the Lamanites. And so they don't want to be king, so there's nobody to lineal descent to the king, to the throne. And so he explains and says, well, what if the birthright blessing son decides that the other son, who's king, shouldn't reign because he wants to be king now? And he's talking about that, the greed, selfishness, pride, arrogance, to take away life, liberty, and property. He's trying to prevent that from happening, to ruin the kingdom, because they want to go beyond missions. And rather than handing it off to another person who would be a good man, instead he decides we're doing a constitutional republic. And so for his constitutional republic, he's appointing judges. And this is what also ruins the government. He's not factoring in the human factor. And so these judges are just like kings, and they live off of other people. And lawyers likewise milk that system, like Mr. Mack for the church's pyramid scheme of missionary work, to recruit others to pay the church. And so we see that, and Expo Nevermos complain about the monetary system of coinage that couldn't have existed in the Americas. A cenum of gold and a culum of no, looking beyond the mark. Get rid of your Christian interpretation. Stop it. See, all of you are judges. If you see somebody being victimized by another, you need to have them stop. It needs to be reported. People need to be left alone to live their life. Life, liberty, property. Nobody should be taking it away. And so Zion is designed so that shouldn't happen. This society was not designed that way. My system is better. But anyway, the judges are to judge according to the law. He says our law, it's his law. He made the laws. He's the king. And so, yes, it's a constitutional republic. And it only needs life, liberty, and property. That's it. We don't need any of the other stuff. There is no governing body other than the people. This is technically the first democracy, but it's not a democracy because it's a constitutional republic. We just all make sure, as the representatives of the constitutional republic, we are all representatives, making sure that we get what we need and want, and everybody else gets what they need and want for life, liberty, and property. So there's no reason for people to do drugs, because that'll murder you. You're taking away your life. You're not allowed to do that. But if nothing else works better than medical marijuana, I guess we'll have to for that purpose only. But if people then decide that they're going to do an underground drug ring, no. If there are no other non-invasive, non-harmful methods, they need to be used. We want to cure people. We don't want to treat symptoms to perpetuate illness. We want illness to be done away with. We want diseases gone, sicknesses gone. We want to cure. We want everybody to live long, healthy, happy lives. We don't want to manipulate people because of the economy. Anyway, moving on. Let's see, just laws, Benjamin, always have kings to rule over you, manners of wars. There is the thing, let's see if I can find it. Apologists claim that there's an error in the Book of Mormon, that Benjamin or Mosiah got switched up. But there was Mosiah first, then Benjamin, then Mosiah. And so I'm curious to know if that's what they're talking about, or if it's another passage. And it would have been Sidney's error if it's in Mosiah on. Yep, Mosiah 21:28. They're claiming should read King Mosiah and not King Benjamin. All subsequent LDS editions of the Book of Mormon have kept that change. So in the 1837 edition, which Joseph Smith rejected, but Brigham Young had published anyway, it was changed to Mosiah. When updating the text of the Book of Mormon in 1837, it was decided that should read, all subsequent editions have kept that change. Okay, so we have the change from 1837 of Brigham Young, but Joseph Smith said no, it needs to be Benjamin in Mosiah 21:28. Mosiah 21:28. See, I had it in associative memory, but I don't memorize, so I didn't know the specific scripture. And so it 1830 Benjamin, 1837 plus equals Mosiah. Okay, so now we can go in and check and see what that's all about once we finish this. That'll be the cherry on top at the end of the video, or right before we go to Noah. Still have Noah to do. Alright, and so yeah, if you could have good leaders, there would be peace throughout the land. There would be no war, no contention, no stealing, no plundering, no murdering, no manner of iniquity. So they understand the concept that I've perfected, because I was told, no, it can't be done. This is the best system we've got. Oh yeah? I'll show you. Let's see. Remember 18, King Noah. For behold, how much iniquity doth one wicked king cause to be committed, and what great destruction. And so if you caught on video yesterday, it's not just the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that's causing great wickedness and great destruction of Mormons, but also with Trump. We are in great danger. Nobody wants to care. Nobody cares about consequences. They're doing it as anarchists, nihilists. So, yea, remember King Noah, his wickedness and his abominations. Also the wickedness and abominations of his people. Behold, what great destruction did come upon them. Also because of their iniquities were they brought into bondage. And so blah blah blah. Okay. And behold, now I say unto you, you cannot dethrone an iniquitous king. Once Trump gets in, I mean, we couldn't even dethrone him when he wasn't king. He got away with all his crimes. Even the one where the judge is going to show him by sentencing him, but not punishing him. He got away with it all. And so, dear God, this is not according to the Constitution. This is going to destroy America. So, he has his friends, and they all do what he does, iniquity. And so he chooses his friends to be in positions of power and trust. Those who bribe Trump get in. And the church has their method of doing it. It's old school crime organization stuff for the pyramid of illiteracy. Start at the bottom, believing that Jesus is real. If you can demonstrate that Joseph and the Book of Mormon were Christian as Jesus, then you can move up the ladder of authority, and it's only for men. Women are women. You always stay at the bottom. Because the church is true. Jesus loves you. That's why you're his slave. And so because of this iniquity, because of the survival of the fittest, and the thefts and the murders and the rapes and the destruction, you have to have security systems. guards. For this case, because they didn't have security systems back then, they didn't even have electricity when the Book of Mormon was written. So yeah, Thomas Edison with electricity, the light bulb. And teareth up the laws of those who have reigned in righteousness before him. Yeah, the Constitution is destroyed. Nobody's following it. Joseph Smith's Jewish commandments, gone, replaced with Christianity. Trampled them under his feet, the commandments of God. He enacteth laws. And sendeth them forth among his people, yea, laws after the manner of his own wickedness. And whosoever doth not obey his laws, he causeth to be destroyed. And this is where America has gone wrong, with states wanting to be sovereign rather than follow the Constitution. And they redefine the Constitution as only applying to the federal government, federal laws. No. Article 6, dumbasses. Everybody must obey the supreme law of the land, which is the United States Constitution. No state, no city, no county can do their rogue thing. All laws across this nation have to be uniform and in conformity with the Constitution for life, liberty, and property for all citizens who are born or naturalized. Born, not fetus conceived. Embryo conceived. Sperm. King sperm. Hell. And people think America is being made great again, huh? They don't see the danger and they don't care until they get hurt by it. Then they start to care and complain and murmur. But I've been the good guy. I have the right to rule. God. And if you don't obey, you're destroyed. That's the hedge laws. Did you catch that in the clip by Kimball yesterday from Marriage? He said that immodesty is the softening to be possessed by Lucifer. No, no, no. And so thus the church punishes Mormons for these hedge laws that they created to keep Mormons from violating the 10 Commandments, just like the Pharisees did. Wrong. Because anybody who reads their New Testament knows that the Pharisees were the bad guys of the story, that Jesus was the rebel. And yet the prophets are just like the Pharisees. They're just like the priests of King Noah. And so yes, wars are a part of all this. And he has to expand his empire because of his great desire for wealth to hoard it. And so that's how the ancient Mesopotamian civilizations began, is that Egypt was able to make use of the land that they had. But Mesopotamia decided to expand because they had a capital city that had workers in the capital that weren't farmers. And so they needed farmland to be tilled and harvested and planted to provide for the capital people, and thus a monetary system of economy for a marketplace to buy and sell, etc., etc. And as the capital city got bigger, they needed more food. They needed to expand the land to produce more food with. Hydroponics was not an option back then. Going up rather than out was not an option that they had invented. And so as a result, they would come across other tribal groups, and because they're in range of the expanded necessary territory for more food, they then began to say, well, we'll make you a tributary kingdom, tributary tribal land, to give the 5% or 10% to the capital, and you just send it to us. Well, you get people who don't want to do that, and so then the king has to then send out his army to enforce it, to get them to do that. And then you get people who end up having to get murdered, and so then you got to put out new people there to be the tributaries for the capital, and etc. So the problem just compounds on itself. And the Mesopotamian kingdoms didn't last very long because of the inability to harmonize the growth of the capital with the needs, basic needs of the capital people. And so they failed in that respect. But yeah, King Sargon, who people wrongly claim was the origin of the Moses story. No, he got it from Horus, you dumbasses, which technically Osiris, but Horus is a part of that. But anyway, dear God. No, Mesopotamia is not older just because the Bible said they landed on Mount Ararat. No, stop it. Okay, so that's the armies waging war with the laws that he has and so forth. There's a system of economy, system of government, and a religious system that you need to be able to develop to be in harmony with each other. And so yeah, that's the board game I invented. It would be great if I could have it programmed on a computer, but again, I would have to learn computer programming, have the system to do it, have the time to do it, and Gilder to frame for it. Mass hysteria with dogs and cats living together. So anyway, and so yeah, this is kind of important, as much as I'm making light of it, because there's evil is stupid. It's not expedient that abominations come upon you, therefore choose. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Alrighty, so Mosiah 21, 28, and then we'll go to the Genesis stuff to wrap it up, because the picture said so. Mosiah 21, 28. Interesting. It is supposed to be Benjamin, you dumbasses. But Mosiah works too, but interesting. Huh. Well, yeah, I can understand why they want King Mosiah, but because Ammon is a son of Mosiah. Well, yeah, I guess, yeah. It should be Mosiah. Interesting. Now Limhi was again filled with joy on learning from the mouth of Ammon that King Benjamin had a gift from God, whereby he could interpret such engravings, yea, and Ammon also did rejoice. So this would be a more complicated situation, because they take you on a topic, and then they talk about another group, and then they get to that group as a separate complete book put in, and then they go back in time to the other people, and it can be confusing. So I can understand, but Omni talks about Jared fighting against the Lamanites. Conferred upon my son Amron. Amron writes, inasmuch the kings Ben-Adam, Chemish, Zedekiah of Judah. Okay, here we go. 14. Let's see. And behold, I am Amaleki, the son of Abinadam. Behold, I will speak unto you somewhat concerning Mosiah, who was made king over the land of Zarahemla. For behold, he being warned of the Lord that he should flee out of the land of Nephi, and as many as would hearken unto his voice of the Lord should also depart out of the land with him into the wilderness. This is Mosiah pre-Benjamin. And it came to pass that he did according as the Lord had commanded him, and they departed out of the land into the wilderness, as many as would hearken unto his voice, and they were led by the many preachings and prophesyings. So Exodus pattern of Moses, Yah, and they were admonished continually by the word of God, and they were led by the power of his arm, of Akhenatans, Akhenaten, the Aten God, the arms coming out of the sun disk, through the wilderness until they came down to the land which they called Zarahemla. And they discovered a people who were called the people of Zarahemla. Now there were not great rejoicing, people of Zarahemla, great rejoicing. Sent the people of Mosiah with the plates of brass, which contained the record of the Jews. Behold, it came to pass that Mosiah discovered that the people of Zarahemla came out of Jerusalem at the time that Zedekiah, king of Judah, was carried away captive into Babylon. So this applies to Exodus. See, this is the two different types of exoduses. Lehi is able to leave with his possessions, except for the gold, silver, and land of inheritance. And they leave before the destruction of Jerusalem by Babylon, rather than Babylon being destroyed. And then Babylon comes in, destroys Jerusalem, and then we're told in the Book of Mormon of the story of Mulek, who leaves with the people at the destruction time, because of the destruction time. And so to prevent from getting taken captive into Babylon, they are able to flee. And that group comes and names the place Zarahemla, as Zarahemla was the name of the original person who established it, even though Mulek was the original one that left, and Mulek is king for Christ. And yeah, Mormon apologists try to figure out that Zedekiah actually had a son who survived and escaped, made it to America. Book of Mormon is literal history true. No! Stop it! Journey in the wilderness, by hand of the Lord, great Mosiah, discovered exceedingly numerous. Nevertheless, they had many wars and serious contentions, fallen by the sword time to time. The language had become corrupted, had brought no records with them. Creator and Mosiah, nor the people of Mosiah, could understand them, Only came to pass the Mosiah caused that they should be taught in his language. Came to pass they were taught in the language of Mosiah. Zarahemla gave a genealogy of his fathers according to his memories. They are not written. They are written, but not in these plates. It came to pass that the people of Zarahemla and of Mosiah did unite together, and Mosiah was appointed to be their king. It came to pass in the days of Mosiah, there was a large stone brought unto him with engravings on it, and in interpreting engravings. Let's see. And behold, Amaleki was born in the days of Mosiah, and I have lived to see his death, and Benjamin his son reigneth in his stead. And then after Benjamin comes another Mosiah. Okay? And so that seems to be what they're talking about with Mosiah 21:28, even though it says that they're the sons of Mosiah and they came after the Zenith guys. But yeah, this is a technical issue that I'd have to do a thorough research on to make sure that the Mosiah is not the first Mosiah, but the second Mosiah versus when the sons, because the first King Mosiah could have sons that were named that, and the second as well, so yeah, there's stuff in here. You gotta understand this is not literal history. But yeah, Ben Ammon is the Yah instead of the sun god. Ben-Ami. But anyway, that's other linguistic Paleo-Hebrew technicalities. Alright, Genesis. Fun. But yeah, there is a Mosiah before Benjamin. And there's a Mosiah after Benjamin. And we all assume that the Mosiah after Benjamin is the sons of Mosiah who go out on their missions, and Ammon is one of them, and says, I know of King Benjamin. Well, if he's the son of King Mosiah, then no, can't be the case. But there is this other Mosiah. And so but I think when they return, Mosiah is still their father as alive. I don't think he is the son who becomes, because it's obviously Mosiah 29 is the second Mosiah who gives up the kingdom because of his sons. Yeah, no. This is bugging me. I gotta have this answered. Neither were any of the sons of Mosiah willing to take the kingdom, therefore the kingdom. They don't name his sons. Alma the younger is chosen as the chief judge. Which presupposes the Alma, the older, but this is Bruce Harnakonki putting this in here. Alma the elder and Mosiah die right there at the Roman period time. Okay, had no one to confer the kingdom on. King Mosiah inquired of the Lord, deliver my sons. And it came to pass that after the sons of Mosiah had done all these things, they took a small number of them and returned to their father, the king, and desired him that they should grant that they might go and select the land of Nephi. They might preach the things which they had heard and impart the word of God to their brethren the Lamanites. So they don't know about the people of Zenith. They're going to the land of Nephi where Zenith went, but they aren't going to talk to Zenith people. But that's who Ammon ends up meeting earlier on in the story. Limhi, son of Noah. Fascinating. Alma began to preach. Those who were with Alma at the time they preached in their faith, and 4 of them were the sons of Mosiah: Ammon, Aaron, Omner, Himni. These were the names. So in 29, all my people, I esteem my sons, and consider the cause that they consider from their joy. Now I declare unto you that he to whom the kingdom doth rightly belong hath declined, which would have been Aaron. Yeah, now Aaron had gone up to the land of Nephi, therefore the king could not confer the kingdom upon him, neither would Aaron take up the kingdom. Neither were any of the sons of Mosiah willing to take up the kingdom. Interesting. Alright, anyway, Genesis, that's another project. Because I have to put it out on paper. Okay. 6. Alright. So this starts us off with what Joseph Smith corrects to conform to the pattern of the Jews. And so mankind begins to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them. That the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit will not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, that they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. See, in this old traditional culture, when a man takes himself a woman as a wife to bear children, the wife has to go with the husband. And so if he's of a different religion, she has to be now part of his religion. This is why Joseph Smith is able to correct this. This is the error that Joseph Smith caught and changed in Moses. And so it's the daughters who are giving up their religion to be a part of the foreign, abominable religion, and thus the children are born up and raised in the abominable church. See how that works? And so, yeah, they're mighty men, men of renown. God said, the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart were evil continuously. And it repented the Lord that he had made man, so let's kill them all. Second coming of Jesus. It's not repented, I'm sure you know. They help you try to figure it out, but they don't know because they're not smart. The Hebrew root means to be sorry, moved with pity, have compassion. No. Genesis 6:6. Okay. Fine, we'll go to the Hebrew word and we'll see if we can give you a better translation. Interesting. Interesting. King Ham. Interesting. The king of Egypt. Yahweh. Fascinating. Cool. Which they include Yahweh with the Yah in there. Fascinating. Fascination. Interesting. Interesting. Egypt. Fascinating. So yeah, another project. So yeah, they're in Egypt. What do you know? What a surprise. And Noah, which technically Noahim is the word in Paleo-Hebrew. And so Noah is the first two letters of repented in Paleo-Hebrew, and Ham is the last two letters in Paleo-Hebrew. Fascinating. Fascinating. And so yes, Noah, Ham are both in this passage with repented, which contains both Noah and Ham in the same word. Fascinating. These Jewish authors are brilliant. So yeah, project. And took them wives as they chose, strive, bear children, evil continually, grieved in his heart, I will destroy man. Nope, needs to be retranslated. Joseph is correct. They were to be warned. Amos 3:7, surely the Lord God will do nothing save he shall reveal the secrets unto his servants the prophets. Technically it should be through the servants of the prophets, an Atan of Yahweh, because it's not translated correctly, but nonetheless, people are supposed to be warned in advance of destruction. But notice how the church says you need to be righteous and you'll be saved. Bruce Hunter Conke says there's no guarantee you'll be saved, but nonetheless we're told we need to be righteous. We need to pay our tithing, need to keep the temple covenants and protect the church from criminal prosecution. And they never tell us of the actual danger. They never tell us, hey, what's coming is going to require 2 years' supply of food. And to help all of you Mormons with what's coming in 2020, we are going to assist you going through your bishop to make sure that you are all stocked up, that you can afford it, and that we'll help you with the lack that you have for our bishop storehouses. And we've made sure that we've had a bishop storehouse for every single ward in the church to make this happen for what we knew in advance is coming, because we are real prophets. Right? Wrong. Exactly. Fascinating. Anyway. And so, yeah, the church is obviously wrong because they didn't prepare and then demanded we prepare and didn't tell us how much we needed to prepare for when destruction comes. They just say, you need to be prepared with whatever happens. Well, we're Latter-day Saints. There's supposed to be some specific stuff. You're supposed to be the ones to tell us when the latter days are, not after they've already happened, when we're not able to prepare anymore. And then you accuse us of being the foolish virgins for not listening to you when we did because you didn't say anything. God, evil continually. And so, yeah. And so then Noah's generations, and the earth was corrupt, filled with violence. And so, yeah, the Moses 8:12 through 30 is the Joseph Smith translation of the daughters of the sons of men. That's the difference. And David was upset with me because I put that as the footnote, because it's not here. They have Moses 8:28 for 11b, which is earth was filled with violence. No, you need it up where Joseph Smith translation is. And David came in and he was pissed. What do you mean pissed? What are you talking about? We were told, make sure that footnotes are for other scriptures. It's Moses 8 about Genesis, you dumbass. I don't care if your daughter's getting sealed in the temple, and I don't have the courage to ask you for a copy of her wedding photo dress. That's what it is. And so, yes, in Sunday school, when this came up, during the Old Testament year, I'm sitting and talking about the Moses translation, that the daughters, not the sons of God. And everybody hated me, and I got kicked out of the class. Moses! Nobody believes in him. Nobody believes Joseph. He's right. Trust him. But you got a whole bunch of guilty women in the older singles ward. Yeah, I was a female teacher too. Because she's a professional teacher, and I'm a disturber. And so, is that how you treat the little kids that you teach? Dear God, somebody needs to get you fired. Anyway, okay? So that's pretty much it. And so you have the Noah thing, which I already explained with the pictures at the beginning of the video. We're done. 3-hour video, isn't that special? So yeah, 5 years from now you'll see it on, and like views will tank. And so yeah, you don't take this literally. Don't say that it's the documentary hypothesis that they took different things and merged them together. No. Oh, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Egyptians. Fascinating. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it. But that's the authority concept. That's the main theme of the video, in case you haven't caught on. Authority. So Noah technically is Horus when Adam is Osiris, or Abel is Osiris, who is murdered by Cain. Noah is supposed to come through Cain, but the Jewish author kind of screwed it up and had Adam and Eve have another child, and they named him Seth, the one who usurped the throne because he murdered his brother. Which the Jew is sort of telling you that by naming him Seth, because Seth is the one who murdered the brother he's replacing. And so, yeah, he comes through him, and so both Seth and Cain have a descendant named Enoch. And Enoch is interesting that they threw them in for both lines. But anyway, none of it is real. It's not a literal genealogy. Don't put it in your genealogy, claiming to brag to other Mormons. My genealogy goes all the way back to Adam. No, it doesn't. Adam's not real. Yes, he is. No, he's not. Stop it. There was an original ancestor of ours, yes, but stop it. So anyway, we can trust the kings and queens of Europe who made their genealogies go back to the kings and queens of the House of Israel. Those are more reliable, but there are still some problems. But I don't know if there's a way to confirm or deny with a test. It requires a lot of archaeological research. And so nobody's doing it right anyway. But regardless. So yeah, once you get around 700 BCE, the kings lists are not trusted, can't be trusted prior to, especially David and Solomon, because David, that's the 18th dynasty of Egypt. He's David Moses, and he gives birth to Peace, the king of peace, king of Salem. That's why he's called Solomon. But nobody seems to know that. Why do I have to do all the work? Stop it! So yeah, Abraham chapter 1 explains the Noah getting drunk stuff. I'll just throw it in here at the end. Because Joseph sets it up to have Ham and Egyptus have a son named Canaan and a daughter named Egyptus also. And so when you see that Egyptus, the daughter of Ham and Egyptus, has a son who is the first pharaoh of Egypt, then you understand that she had to have sex with her brother, according to the Egyptian Heliopolis creation glyph of brother and sister having sex, for the first pharaoh, Osiris. And so Canaan is the one who had sex with Egyptus, brother and sister. And so Noah, in his tent, is upset that he was drunk and something happened for which Ham, seeing him naked in the tent, has Canaan punished to be denied the priesthood, because he had sex with his daughter Egyptus, rather than being given the kingdom to have a daughter of Shem or Japheth be given to him, as it would be the cultural tradition of the time if it were literal history true. That's how Joseph Smith is explaining it for you. So, yeah, real easy when you know the truth. Not throwing in Christianity, turning it literal history. But nonetheless, from the Egyptian documents, Joseph knows what he's talking about. Trust Joseph. Okay, so that's it. I think we're done. We're done.